Hello, my name is Larry Belfield. Welcome to the Belfield Show. I'd like to thank you for joining me. For all of you tuning in, I welcome you to the Belfield Show. This week on today's show is about all men. And what we want to do is draw you into the fact of last week's course, which was the stones. And of course we understand that the stones are all that our societies are founded upon. And upon researching the history of real estate, we've come to understand that we find that the stones and the building materials that basically all of our cities are built upon is the leading cause to most of our conflict. We've been led to believe that war is just war and fighting is just fighting. Excuse me. We've been led to believe that war is just war and fighting is just fighting. And we think that it's just crazy men, crazy people, crazy times, kings that want to just abolish and get rid of hundreds of people at the whim, at the drop of a hat because they're crazy. But what we are finding is that this is something that affects everybody. No one is immune to decay and to your city falling apart. And when it all happens at once to several cities at once, it's because it seems that we have built them all at the same time. And actually the history proved true. Alexander the Great built several cities, which is modern day Iraq, modern day Pakistan, Gaza Strip. He actually went into these countries and built those cities. Even though there was a lot of bloodshed, even though there was a lot of killing, a lot of enslavement, we can finally draw back the curtain and understand that the decay rate of this brick is causing a lot of devastation. When your house goes out 20 or 30 years, everyone has the understanding that, hey, I'm going to keep building these houses, I got to keep them up. But when your house lasts so long, when it comes to 300 years, you're talking about 15 generations of people. Some of these people we just can't pick up these stones anymore. We can't rebuild this whole building. We should have did it 20 years ago, 40 years ago. We should have started it. But the problem is, it lasted so long. It was so strong. It was so good. Man, we just partied on it all the time. Now we're massive people, and we can't build this kind of type of building material again. We got to start over. Train men in this. Train people in this, and how to lay bricks right, and how to create foundations right. And this is what our society is about. Us training ourselves to get better. And what I was trying to prove was how real estate started. But where we are now is in a place where we are finding the foundations and the root causes and the roots of our entire existence upon this planet. I thank you for joining me as we delve into this week's episode, All Men. Now, I'm just going to cut it up in the editing. What's happening is, hold on, let me do this. This is 4 minutes. Okay. Hello, my name is Larry Belfield, and welcome to the Belfield Show. The episodes are getting quite a bit long in tooth, so I'm actually starting to combine the little 10-minute segments and trying to make it just one big long segment. So bear with me as we continue the Belfield Show. It is still basically an hour-long show, or a 30-minute show, excuse me. Except we won't have any of the gaps in between. So you'll probably have to, watch half of it now, half of it later. It doesn't really matter. You can just keep me with you at all times. You know what I'm saying? So this week we're talking about something that affects all men. Now, you probably won't believe this when I tell you, but there is no real war that connects to one from the other. Even the most retaliatory wars are generations apart. I mean, for example, the gap between World War I and World War II is almost 50 years. The men that fought that war, World War I, are dead by World War II. So I was wondering, how does a war spill over to other generations? And it dawned on me. How do wars start? The way wars start. It usually starts with turmoil and the breaking down of communication. Some unbelievable act occurs. Then instead of handling it like it's a crime, it's treated like a political or national event. With the evidence all over the news and everybody forming an opinion before hearing the case, then we cease to talk. And then we have old flares that start to flare up. Old fires start to flare up. You see, wars, they come out of certain conditions. Wars aren't really connected. They come from some person or people that are suffering under some conditions that they don't like. 99% of the time is for food or resources. And the offshoot rowdy man that like to thieve and kill. On the other hand, there's probably 99% rowdy men that like to kill and 1% for food, right? So what I'm trying to get at is that there is no conflict that keeps lingering on through the years. Every war is like its own separate event. See, when you see this country at war with another, it's several battles between several tribes over several years in several different regions. And by regions, these wars are for the same thing. The tribes to the north steal from the travelers on the road to Damascus. The tribes in the west don't pay their taxes because they think they're better than you. And the people in the south, they're charging extra for food exports, but they're not giving you your cut. See, the people have been doing this for years. There's way more money going out than there is coming in. Excuse me. War. You see, throughout this year of study, I have found that all of man is connected. However, not by wars and conflict or fighting. Not by regions or political gains. We're not connected by cloth or clothing. We're not connected by styles, shoes, materials, engineering, intelligence, hopes, dreams, fears, or even triumphs. There's no flag that connects all of life. There's no boat, there's no ship, no plane, or any other type of vessel. We are not linked through artistry, through culture, through symbols. So we're not together because of wars, weaponry, knives, or even stones. Neither our beliefs, our hopes, our fantasies. In fact, throughout this year, I was looking hard on what connects all of us. See, there is no link that we can find that starts from the beginning and leads us to the end, or leads us to our present day. There is nothing that connects us. Save this. Saved. When I say saved, when you hear the word saved, what does it mean to you? In this year of seeking truth, I found something you might find valuable. There are many that cause damage and are willing to harm to get what they desire. However, there are few that will go into danger, that will face fearful odds, that will face certain death. There are few that will go beyond their own borders to protect foreign lands, to uphold safety, to ensure that the way of life is equal throughout the land. This allowed me to see the value in a lot of things. However, the greatest thing I have ever discovered is our value in one another. Our existence may hinge on the strength of a brick. However, the greatest value in existence is the ability to work together to lay them down. After already seeing the 300-year gap in the succession of spiritual leaders and events, give or take, I still don't see how they link up because those dates aren't really exact. However, when I matched up the gap of time with the half-life of a brick, I had found my answer. Choosing any 2 points in time, I chose Alexander the Great and Jesus because Alexander the Great built 6 cities. Since so much was created at this time, this is why I chose it. Now, he made temples and statues and water irrigation systems for farming. But the most important part is the brick. See, in 150 years, the bricks are half past dead. Bricks that are used heavily would have been replaced. By this time, these bricks would have lost up to probably 20% of their strength. In the time of Jesus, 300 years later, these bricks would have probably been powder. And we're going to pause right here to restart the tape. Now, I made a rough estimate on how many generations of people would have gone by in that 300 years. Most people have children in their late teens to early 20s. So if everyone has children roughly in their 20s, you can easily get 4 to 5 generations every 100 years. That means there were 16 to 20 generations that live under this architecture, walk on these roads, fish in these ponds, climb these trees. It must have seemed like heaven until it's time to fix it up. See, it's been so much time and so many people that nobody even knows where the foundation of the city begins or ends, where it was built, and when did we go past the edge of it. The only foundation, you can only build on the foundation. However, we're talking about settlements that turn into cities. See, you can start with as little as one farm and grow into hectares and acres of structures. Think of woods. Think of Woodstock or Burning Man. See, we all think of a new city coming up as always good. See, bad places sprang up too. And some places sprang up, it was just kids partying. See, there were places where they could avoid authority. However, there are massive amounts of people heading towards anywhere until this 300-year mark. See, there are no massive amounts of people heading anywhere until this 300-year mark. There is no war, no fighting, no devastation greater than in times like these. So I decided to take another look at the times, the dates, and events that take place. And what I have found astonished me. I saw that the Silk Road is older than most of the kingdom that it connects. And furthermore, I can safely say that most all of these people that are present have no actual connection to the beginning of the road. The only information that is present is the losing and the reforming of the road. Now think about that. We have over 15,000 years of documented history, but we don't know when the Silk Road was first discovered. See, and I believe I know why. Following the decay rate of these bricks, I roughly outlined a time map. This map showed me a pattern of the world. How the world was made. Or how the road was made. And then in subsequent years, the road was taken care of by many nations. Now let me present this to you in timeline order. In the year 900, Zoroaster, one of the first religions to claim there to be only one true God that we should follow and worship. Assyria, the first civilization ever to be created, has risen. Now, 300 years later, in the year 600, Nebuchadnezzar switches the empire over from using clay bricks, sun-dried bricks, to fired bricks. And this is also the time where Xerxes and Leonidas and the War of the 300 happened. This in the year 580 or 540. This is in the same time of Nebuchadnezzar changing the world over to using fire bricks. Now in the year 300 years later, Alexander the Great conquers the known world. Just like 300 years before when Xerxes did it. Now it is said that he killed and slaughtered and enslaved many people. However, we now know that the numbered dead and what was left behind don't fit the description of reckless murdering. The cities and the records and the education centers that he set up, the cities and the records and the education centers that he set up drew the world into universal education and learning. Study and learning was a kingly right. However, with Alexander the Great's public library system, anyone can get knowledge at any time and teach themselves. He changed education. In the year we call 300 years after Alexander the Great, Jesus is born. Now, I hope I don't need to explain anything about Jesus right now. All right? But 300 years after, Muhammad is said to be born. A man of great character. And he was known for paying people's debts. He was known for freeing slaves. He was a man who treated women fairly. He had very few wives in a time when men could have as many wives as they want, where men would take over the wives of their fathers once they passed. They could have dozens, if not hundreds of wives. And he only married for love. And when he did marry, he gave inheritance to those that needed it and took care of women that were impoverished, widows, downtrodden, women left on the outside of society. Most men would take women and take on wives to gain the dowry they would get for taking care of them. However, Muhammad only married for love and to give. Now his message is to read the Word of God. In the year 600, Rome is all but gone. However, after the last stone falls, there comes a man of great character. A man that becomes king through the people. A man known for stopping conflict. A man that treated and helped other kingdoms as his own. A man that treated others equal to himself. This man was King Arthur. Now in the year 1000, this is where we have the Crusades begin. Just 300 years after, we know that this was a great policing adventure where millions of men, thousands of men were called and actually died trying to make a safe passageway to the Holy Land. Where the only way to really call for help is with a pigeon. This was like the slowest call for 911 in history. The Catholics and the Muslims went all over the region at the time. It was controlled by religious orders. What we actually learned from the Christians, the Muslims, and the Jews had taken place. What we actually learned about this time, the Crusades, is that the Christians, the Muslims, and the Jews had pretty much taken over all of Israel, the entire region, excuse me. Most areas were thriving except for Jerusalem itself. Now there are a series of famines, diseases, and cannibalistic outbreaks. Things that are not fun to read or hear about. Now after the Crusades, we have a much clearer records, and the original Abbasid Caliphate returns to take over the land, returns to its former glory. We'll get into that later. Now, in the year 1400, I'll pause for a second and restart the tape. Now, 300 years after the Crusades, there comes a person. There comes one with extraordinary intelligence, young, extremely well versed in the Word of God. During the 100 Years' War in France, this person was taken to the head of the church of her town, and she was tested and asked some very strenuous questions, and after was taken to the head of the division of her region. And slowly, city by city, state by state, this person is taken to many churches and many patriarchs of the cloth. And after some weeks and months of talking with the religious monarchy, she is taken to basically, she is taken to the Pope of France, which is basically the president at the time, because everyone is Catholic. Everyone. Now, after talking with the head of the church and the head council and the Pope, she leaves the building with the full authority of the entire church. And remember that the world is now ran by the church. In the Middle East, it's the Muslims, and in the West, it's the Catholic Church, which is the same, we realize, is the same thing. Okay? When she leaves that building with the full authority of the church, they give her control of the entire army and leads France to a great many victories. However, this one is captured and taken by the enemy. Yet, her voice is heard. She begins to speak with the people in the prisons and the people controlling the jails, and she is then escorted to see the monarchs of the enemy. You see, they're both Catholic. They just have disagreements. So now, slowly but surely, she is working her way up the enemy's monarchy. Town to town, city to city, she is talking from priest to priest. And she is taken all the way to the Pope of England. She is basically seeing now the England's Pope. Well, she told them something that struck them to their hearts. Because several weeks and days later, she was burned at the stake by the church. Now, I don't want to get into Galileo and Copernicus, who were all stricken and imprisoned for their ideas, for their beliefs, in going against the church. It's because of their attitudes and their remarks. No one is allowed to speak for God except those that are ordained in the ministry. And if you say anything about it and you're not ordained, then that is a big problem. See, now Joan of Arc comes in and saying things that only ordained ministers should know. And they're not following it. And they're not understanding it. And whatever happened, she was burned at the stake. But actually, this is one of the first times, 2 years later, the enemy's church made a public statement, saying that we are the church. We are basically the president. We're in control of everything. And we're actually apologizing for murdering her. And they actually went into the courts and overturned the sentence, even though it was after she was murdered. That's how powerful she was. That's how strong she was. That even after her death, they had to come right and clean with their wrongdoing. This woman's name is Joan of Arc. So now in the year 1500, Christopher Columbus finds the Americas looking for a way around the Silk Road. Now, the 1700s. The Americas. 300 years later. See, now I have a sermon that proves God exists. It proves why you're scared to go to church and celebrate. See, I show you why it's hard to sit in a quiet place and dwell within your mind and fill it with knowledge or commune with those that created consciousness. See, I have a lesson that will guide you to an ultimate understanding of life and the function of the soul. See, I wanted to explain to you in detail how the whole universe is our bodies. Every star in the sky encompasses one another, making a blanket of atmosphere for not just us to grow, but so that there will be a forest of life. We've always been a forest. There's been no time that we've been apart. There's always been a mix of people everywhere. There's so much that connects us that what disconnects us is the fact that we are too connected. We're too connected at an unhealthy level. Like, we aren't allowed at family functions anymore. We keep taking all the food, showing up drunk, cursing out my mama, but we love each other. There's much that connects us. See, I don't even see the differences between us anymore. I saw the same people going through the same problem. The same problem, the same people. After all the research and all the studying, I found a problem. One big, huge problem. And it was one thing I was hoping to avoid. But after finding all this history, after finding Jesus and the Holy Grail, I think it's time to tackle the biggest beast of all. Let me prove to you that the devil exists. Let's talk about massacres. This is very tough for a lot of people, especially now that COVID has devastated our entire world. You see, I lost my stepmother, who I've known for over 15 years. And over 20 members of my family have been lost due to COVID and lost to the wake of this disease. My whole plan was to give the highlights of the history without going into things that might disturb people. I believe I was forced into this direction because our world seems to be so full of hateful acts such as these. The only time there's evidence of ongoing violence like this is during some of the most dreadful times in history. When I look back in history, I find a small tidbit of information that might help. You see, we assumed that if a city is gone, it was destroyed, fallen, or taken over. However, we must look at this closer and realize that there are several different ways a city can fall. Now, trust me, you need to look at these things for an entire year to realize that a city can be taken down in multiple ways. One is when a force comes and lays siege to your city and encompasses it. Okay, they siege it. Then it can be left alone or destroyed. You can also take over a city. Many cities were handed over by pieces of paper, then without any forces attacking at all. And a city can fall. This is based on the simple decay rate of a brick. It can get so degraded and decrepit that not even vermin stay there. Not even rats and roaches. Imagine well and sewage water backing up into one another. 300 years after it was made. When a city falls, it is a slow transition. The first thing to go in a human society would be the thing that we use to bring us prosperity. Our land, our valuables, and our skills. Once the city starts to go, it can no longer handle the amount of people there. Then the stuff that is there gets used up by the many more people over the years. Then the things get to looking nasty, and that drives the new people away. With the reduced population, now you got a big cleanup job. In fact, all your jobs are cleanup jobs now. Now that the commerce is left to the bigger, cleaner, more well-developed city, the hell away from Uville, then the farming is the worst part. You think you're going to save on land? However, a funny thing happens to unused farmland. Now, if you remember the Dust Bowl, many people left farming because of the Great Depression, having so much soil dropped on a dime. The light field of crops blew out into dust, covering whole states in dust. The extinguishing of the gopher was a major cause too. So I was afraid of this to look up death. So I was afraid of this to look up death in this way. It allowed me to see dreadful fear of all historians. I went to look up the killings, and I found natural disasters. Most of these massacres evolved around the 300-year mark. Ever since we have been building our societies out of bricks, we have had a consistent failure point in our cities. Somewhere along the road, we band together. Everybody everywhere did the same thing at the same time. Build a city. Most would get hung up in the fall of a city, like I did. But you must understand, for all these cities to fall at the same time, this can only mean that they were all created at the same time. Once these big buildings start falling at a consistent rate, somebody better get paid up here. What we really realize here is that in sight of recent events, how do you deal with a pandemic with no vaccine, with no doctors, with no hospitals, no industrialized medicine, no napkins? We take so much for granted, and we never see the big picture. What would make you want to kill 1 million people? Maybe saving 1 billion people. Now, it's hard to just say it's worth it. But the way that a deadly disease approaches and infects a whole city, now it's not right to kill. And I really don't believe that there is a person alive that would really live with killing 1 to save 100. However, how we deal with pandemics, we put walls and barriers. We force people to take stuff and inject stuff into their bodies, wear face masks. These things are unethical and illegal. However, when it comes to safety, we'll commit crime to ensure health. And this leads to conflict. One can see how this would easily get out of hand, going from friendly cure to hunting down people that haven't got their shots, charging them, taking their right to work, or even killing them, to solve your feeble suspicion about the spread of disease. Almost all of these mass killings are surrounded by these events of natural decay or natural disaster, and some sort of guidance at the most unfortunate time, or the time you begin to listen. That last one went a little bit long. All right, let's just get into it. Let's talk about conflict and war. Your people keep crossing my border illegally, okay? Look, they take reduced pay, which is destroying my economy. They commit crimes, and they come in here and they hide from their own government. My country is in conflict with yours, buddy. War. See, that's conflict. War. I'm coming to kill you. and take all that you own for my own personal property. Right? Now, conflicts can lead to war. However, war is a means to an end. Today, there is a fine line between war and conflict. When people are disrespecting your boundaries, it's just laws being broken. However, when you make a stand against it, this is where war may rise. Don't you know that we used to live by men? We come from a world of great people. And be it riches, fame, intelligence, just power, sticking by a good man has great advantages. You will live as he lives, just as long as he is used for you, right? It is well documented that men of such power had the right to have men executed. And some use this power without restraint. Abuse of power and abuse of the people can only lead to one conclusion. The people are going to start leaving. See, now I'm beginning to understand why a bunch of people would leave a region all at once. See, I don't want to harp on people leaving or getting hurt because of bad rulers. However, I pray that I may be wrong. But what I find is that most of these genocides and mass murderings falls onto just a few men. For example, Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans. Now, it took FEMA a week to get water to the Superdome. When a parade of misplaced Americans tried to seek higher ground in the city next door, they were met with police resistance. Now, these men, this seems trivial, right? Set up a police presence when these people come in, but not checking upon the progress of the food and supplies going to the victims. It's amazing how skin color comes into play as soon as they're dangerous, as soon as there's danger. Families that have been living in the country since before it became a country are now different. So you don't want to know how fast things can change from we to they, from us to them. See, this isn't a perfect example of leaders attacking people. But I want you to realize that a decision a leader made may cause a great deal of pain and anguish for a great deal of people. The bigger your society grows, the more people will be affected by the choices of fewer and fewer people. That's because most don't go into policy. Anyway, people want to be a part. They want to join in and play, but when they move to a new region, they might have their own traditions. However, they will have no choice being surrounded by all the life around them. So it may take decades for a family to fully integrate into a community, but when they do, when they finally celebrate with the crowd, they will enrich the centers that they are involved in with their own culture. You see well-integrated cultures, so close that their religions are beginning to combine. However, none of that matters during these times. You have people that have been living together for hundreds of years and dozens of generations. However, all that is for a world ending. All it takes is for a world-ending event, like the foundation of your city is turning to powder, and walls are falling on top of you. Then all of a sudden, hey, it's God's fault. Okay? So after building buildings to fall, and the disease, after buildings begin to fall, and the disease is so far spread that you cover your face for fear of breathing toxic air. And a series of derogatory and offensive phrases are exchanged by individuals with a lot of power. That has a lot of power with the people. And somehow the attitude and the feelings take over. And then conflict becomes war. Now, I don't consider myself a preacher. But my grandfathers, they raised me for a few years, and they always had a church going. They had New Hope Community Church. Now, whether it was on Main Street or in her backyard, my grandmother kept the doors of the church open. Now, my father preached the word for many years as well, and I always felt comfortable with running a church. However, I never knew how to convince people that Jesus is real. See, preachers are so good at it. It's like they're walking right next to Jesus. They sing and shout and till their voices give out. And they dance and sing and play instruments. And they can speak like the Lord himself. And you can see how this is a tough act to follow. I'm convinced. What do I say? I sound like a broken record, right? Just saying the same thing over and over. I got no talent. I don't play any instruments. I play instruments like I'm a confused bum. All right. Well, I can play instruments a little bit. Okay. I play like I learned yesterday. Okay. My singing sounds so bad. The cat cries. The baby cries. I cry. If you need guidance and reassurance in the Lord Jesus, the Lord Jesus is real, you need to find somebody else. Okay? Because I don't have any data. All right? Any proof that will let you see that the Lord is real, true, and that he loves you. Right? No, I've got plenty of proof of that. All right? I don't have a shred of evidence that can show you that Jesus ever existed. But I love the Lord with all my soul, with everything that is within me. See, I go to him first thing in the morning and the last thing at night. I read his stories. I read his message. Not because, I have a world of evidence. Not because I have all these texts and teachers and landmarks and memorabilia and merchandise, but because I was saved personally. Saved from a life of crime. The majority of my family will spend the majority of their lives behind bars. And these weren't bad men. They were badass kids that made one mistake after the other. Now I see that stealing, can lead you down to a path of stealing, being a thief. You can get caught with a weapon. You can get caught shooting someone. This is not snow, right? So I don't care how far this rolls down a hill. Okay? This shouldn't gather any steam. This is a whole different way of life and thinking. This is a predator and an animal way of thinking. Only the most vicious of creatures preys on its own kind. Most people would automatically go to skin color. But that is a crime. If we look at this without time, you see that race has nothing to do with evil. However, evil will use anything to conceal itself. Like a shadow. Evil can only exist in an environment where it's shielded from light. Light If you draw pleasure from other people's pain, if you hurt people, you will get paid back in full. Right? This is the way everyone thinks. No, if this were going on in their heads, people would not steal. However, what goes on in your head after you steal is, that felt good. Let's steal again. See, it's really like a little devil there, rewarding you with good feelings for doing bad things. Or did you just learn it through your friends, through your acquaintances? Was it in your upbringing? It doesn't matter now. You're convicted and charged. Now what do? Well, like my friend did, you keep going. You get more friends involved and you spend years in jail. However, if you did what I did and fall down to your knees, now that you're high school dropout, you are a felon. You got a baby on the way. Now, I'm not praying on my knees. I'm yelling on my knees. I'm crying on my knees for a way. See, the Lord answered. See, this is the only thing that I did different from everyone else. See, in my prayer, a bolt of lightning hit me. See, I started seeing jobs. And I started seeing applications that I put in. And I began to have a change of heart. I started thinking of the possibilities instead of my position. See, for you, this is trivial. Let me remind you that I was a failure. And my grades were okay, but I couldn't be in school no more. Now I got a felony case. Now this woman talking about she's got a child that's mine. And after all that, just seconds into prayer, I feel hope. Handyman and mechanic jobs start coming in. Then a few weeks later, look, I got the most severe toothache I ever had in my life. I was eating the ultimate cheeseburger. And the whole right side of my face started burning. Now, needless to say, I was in a predicament. I had no money, I had no insurance. I barely started working. But then my father came to me and he told me that his insurance will cover me until I am 26, as long as I am in school. Well, needless to say, I started school that semester. And it was the most beneficial time of my entire life. I met my mentor there. I met friends and family that I have for life there. And would you believe, my change, my charges, my felony case was reduced to a misdemeanor. I was given time served with 4 days of community service. I have a family right now serving more than over 200 collective years in jail right now. And that's a lot for one family name. But that's not all. This is just one instance. There is a waterfall of people in crime. There was a waterfall of people in crime. I was able to get out from under it. Only because of the prayer. My prayer to the Lord. I contributed to this one prayer. Lord, give me a way. And he made me a way throughout my entire life. Even though I pray all the time, I contributed just to this one prayer. This may not convince you, but remember, I am not here to convince you that this is real. I am here to convince you to find out yourself, to go get convinced. See, writing this paper, I have found a slew of evidence that proves God is real. I have found an overwhelming amount of evidence that Jesus did walk this earth. Even still, you have doubt and suspicion. So now, I have the perfect way to prove to you that your place should be with the Lord. For the only devil in this world is me. Coherency. See, to have clear and logical thought through the midst of your turmoil, to be able to think clearly as a trait, an instinct that has been cultivated for eons throughout the generations, like the color of your skin. The reaction time in the logical pathway that your mind goes through tends to be learned. The thinking styles that have been created through our evolution on this earth have been instilled in you by the environment. For instance, when you hear tires screeching, you expect that there is a car crash about to happen. See, through you growing up, you've heard a car crash or two. And in your witnessing these events, you might have associated the screeching tires with a car crash. What usually happens is someone recognizes a dangerous situation too late and slams on the brakes. Then suddenly they collide. Well, your brain and your body do this all the time. It's called memory. But your body has it too. They call that muscle memory. Now, athletes will train their muscles to act a certain way, depending on what sport that they play. They will routineize their performance until they know it back and forth, front to back. Some great sportsmen and women will do a little extra workout. Bodybuilders, they start small. Most say start easy and work your way up. Now, they don't exercise willy-nilly. They structure it so that they can get the most out of their body. First, it's a few reps, but day by day, when you add a few reps here and there, you grow exponentially. So you start with 5, move to 10, then 15, then 20, and pretty soon, you keep at it. You'll be doing hundreds of reps. Now, this holds true with the mind. If you think clearly and with love and respect and truth, you may only be able to do it a few times in the beginning, but with practice and patience, you will be able to do it longer, at greater pressure, with greater speed, with greater ease. However, this is not what I was doing, okay? I was breaking the law. I wasn't going to school, okay? Me and my friends are getting arrested right in front of me, okay? I wasn't all bad. But thinking clearly, thinking hopefully, thinking positively wasn't one of my routines, okay? I had to get my shit together. I knew this going into that prayer. And I knew this coming out. However, I knew deep in my heart that what I needed was achievable. And I believe that still to this day. Now, I don't just pray to get things better. I began a long and difficult road getting employment. Only after a toothache that made me get through 16 hours of school each week. Finding a mentor and a career through that pain. Then getting my record expunged a year later. I had a whole new life. A bigger family. More friends. And hope for a future that was undetermined. Now I have wonder and dreams for my future. A future that is uncertain, and that makes me proud, not afraid. This used to scare me. Having a future where I didn't know what was going to happen. Now I relish the fact that I don't know what tomorrow may bring. Consciousness. The concept of God is too complex, so I'll break down this into simple consciousness. 99% of the body's mechanics are automatic. Seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, breathing. In fact, the only moving part is your mind. However, you don't really have control of your consciousness because you rarely listen to it. You are bombarded with thought, advertising, conversations, and situations. However, you regularly tune the majority of these things out as they have nothing to do with you. Cars go by, birds chirping, the phone ringing. Your mind is really there to cut off these things that don't need your attention. See trees in the rainforest, people across the street, your phone is ringing. The only real choice you make is to or not to act. You may feel sleepy. See, you will or you won't go to bed. Now, it doesn't matter what you decide to do then. Something gave you an option and you took one. Say you spot a bear in the woods. You really want to do something and there are plenty of options, but the main thing I want you to see is that you will either do something to avoid the bear or act as if you've never seen him at all. However, you will have more options than that if the situation arises. But I want to stress the fact that you had a signal go off inside you that read the danger. Okay, let's say you're learning in a classroom and you're getting taught, but you don't understand the material. Whether or not you sought help or just kept your head down, so you felt the consciousness. I don't know the lesson for the day, and if I don't get help, I'll have trouble doing the homework. Your mind isn't you just doing things. It's a mix of all that is around you. All your knowledge, all your memories, all your emotions, your whole heart and soul, which allows you to navigate the daily environment. Okay? That's a monkey. Okay, that's the natural mind that bends to the will of nature. A natural monkey can't really read and write. However, studies and tests show that monkeys can learn up to a 5th grade level, maybe more. Now, I hope they're not lying to us because it feels like a monkey's running some of the stuff around here. Now, with the understanding of the mind of an ape, we learn two things. The brain is roughly the same, no matter the size or creature. And two, if humans die and apes can read, they're pretty much going to take over everywhere. Now, there was a test done with a crow by her 2 handlers. They wanted to know if a bird can actually tell the handlers apart, if they can understand, they can tell people apart. So one gave the bird an extra helping of food, and the other handler stole one of the favorite toys of the bird. Now, the handler that gave extra food gets greeted very excitedly. However, for the thieving handler, the bird begins to hide her things when she comes around and actually gets skittish. See, this shows us that even tiny brains can still bring up notions and attributes of people, which meant that they can feel like us. So she felt threatened when the person that stole her stuff came around, which leads me to question, why don't animals think like us? Or why don't we think like animals? It seems like they feel like we can, and they have the capacity to think in the same patterns that we are able to. So why haven't they evolved like us? Is our change so unique? Why can't anything else grow and change as we do? You can simply say it's evolution, but how do you explain everything else not evolving? Our entire existence becomes a mystery. I gained a fear through my research that mankind and his expansion cut off a lot of the forest, the grassland, and indigenous wildlife. And with the records of the growth of this country, we can see how all the world made their new cities. Oh, no. When you go to an unknown land and you want to settle, you first must take or push out and capture anything that is a threat to you. With this model and the mass migration to America that has been going on for 500 years, a lot of animals and land were changed in this short period of time. This may be why they didn't get to evolve with speech or reading or writing. However, they can read and write. It's been proven. They just can't. They just don't. Now, there's only one reason they don't talk, read, or write. It's because they haven't been taught. Our society is 2,000 years old by our time, but much older in reality. If we spent 200 years on this, we could probably see a speaking animal. Now, if this is true, what does this say about us? We are constantly seeking connection and understanding from our creatures. Just think about that. We study, learn, and try to communicate with all of the species that we can. We have people that devote their entire lives to one type of species to ensure its survival and safety in a fast-changing world. Just think about that for 1 second. We are on the consistent search for life, searching for it, finding its secrets, communicating with it, then protecting it with our life if necessary. Sometimes, to find God, you must look within. If this is even partly true, it would mean that something or someone must have imparted these traits in our consciousness by someone being there to teach us step by step how to care for one another with something far greater than knowledge, with heart, mind, and soul. Just these actions we take as people should inspire you and help you realize that our potential is untapped, because we may believe that we are equal, safe, fair, nice, abundant, loyal, good, and righteous. However, this is a lie. The truth of the world is this: rich and powerful men get their way, and everyone else has to do what they say. I would love to show you that God is real. However, what I will do, that will do you no good. So what I will do is show you what man can do with his natural conscience. But thank God for TikTok. So I can stream 50 years of hate crimes in 3 seconds. All right. So for every great man, we're in the midst of great suffering. People will do anything for freedom and to find a way out. People are losing their children to debts. Money is above all else at these times. People are being systematically punished wrongly. People are forced into slavery for their debts. People are chopped into pieces for their crimes. Now, I don't like to talk about this stuff. It's sickening. However, in light of recent events, I just lost 20 members of my family to a natural event. There are a lot of my family, suffering because of breadwinners and homemakers are now gone in a flash. Now to make do, we need some serious help. Now I look back at these times in history where understanding was expensive. The first thing in my mind is a list of who will be the first to go in a situation like this. See, this seems arbitrary, but you must think like they did at that time. Our city is under siege or disease begins to spread. The first thing to go is new people. See, they brought the disease or they're spies. No matter how long they've lived here. See, black people say it's white people say it's black people. And more often than not, the mixed people get killed first. And that isn't a joke. I'm talking about literal death. Then they come up with devastating rules to separate the two peoples. And decades later, you find out that it was just racism. Like we didn't know. The rule is when it is time to fight, get with your color and throw down. See, it seems like in the heat of battle, people choose things that are easily to tell apart when you're fighting each other. And then they'll fight for that reason. For some reason, all the people are all the same height and weight and color. Don't fight each other. So you see that in the chaos only allows groups to fight other groups that don't look like that other group. Then the surviving group will begin to shed off parts of its own group. So usually when a pandemic happens, the solution is kill everybody new. Kick out everybody new. Then kill everybody that's different. Then, within our own group, kill everybody that's micro different. Then kill all the people that we don't like in the group. So, kill until the killing stops. So you probably won't believe that until I show you a list of murderers and bloodthirsty tyrants. Sorry, but look, I don't have room on my computer for such things. If you want to look up murderers and bloodthirsty tyrants, you need to go to Google and look it up yourself. Okay, look. We'll actually pause the video right here and we'll wait while you go look them up. Okay? Alright. I have to look up all sorts of very bad crimes of hate. And there's only one thing that connects them all. And that is differences. All of these crimes are mostly committed on people and perps that are different from the perp. When you actually read through these crimes, it becomes more ignorance and personal issues that the perp is going through in their life. Now there are single men that have taken out thousands. And would you believe that this can boil down? Meaning that the reason for such evil that men do can be reduced and calculated. Like we can find out why men took such vicious actions. Examples. When you dive into the wicked act of men, there are usually some personal hurt or pain involved. Not to make light of his pain or the criminal activity, but to solidify that the evil has no basis. They commit such harmful crime because they've probably been hurt in such an awful way that they're willing to hurt any and everyone, no matter who they are or what they may have done to them. Now, this is what they mean by a victimless crime, because there was no targeted victim. anyone can be subject to their wrath. What they are probably trying to do is show that they're in pain. However, they may not know how to express that correctly. Now, we all lose jobs. That's a part of life. We all lose family. That's a part of life. We all lose hope. Look, that's just a part of life. So what I found when I looked up the devil was the natural conscience. Not evil or evil men, but deeds and actions that are led by the natural mind and heart. See, I have fears. I have pain. See, now I'm scared of what's outside the blanket, what's under the bed, what's in the closet. Those people. The same fear that is cultivated in us as children will sometimes rule over the heart of a grown man. We expect men of power to rise above such things. However, when things break down, in fact, every time we break down, the natural mind of a man takes over. Then it becomes a big game of you versus me, us versus them. However, it always ends up with us all working together. Excuse me, I almost made the biggest mistake of all, I think. End up working together. It all ended fine. Everything's okay now, right? We learned to live together. Finally, we trust each other. One day things got better. What I found out is this is wrong. We are wrong. Everything is all wrong. We sincerely believe that we all evolved from different regions, and those regions have grown so big that the edges are running into another. And when they collide, our people are meeting each other or having conflicts that leads to battles, which leads to war, which leads to one civilization killing the other. Then we begin to slowly rebuild process with one race. We begin to slowly do the rebuild process with one race subservient to the other. See, I hope with my research, you can see things a bit different. When you look at the world through war, you'll see a great escalation in the layout of war. We have mistaken fighting. We have mistaken fighting for war. See, a war ends when the battles are won, but the fight may never end. A fight can rage on within. Without a word or a strike, a fight can smolder underneath detection, behind the scenes, underneath the darkness. A fight can rage on forever. For a war is made between peoples, but a fight is made between hearts. Ooh. Gotta pause it. What we as a species have found, what we as a species have fought for is quite evident. We harp over deviation. We cry when things go bad. We are sad when others are in desperate situations. The problem is that you can't stop every crime. And it's easy to say that Hitler's evil, and he's an evil man, and he killed those people. It's not easy to say that he was just talking and got his people to act horrifically. It's easy to call Biggie and Tupac gangsters, but I'm the felon with weed in my car. Not that I believe having weed is justifiably legal, it's just because that we are law-abiding citizens. And whether or not it pleases us, we wish to abide by the law. When I break these wars down, they're not even run by evil men. Most of these conflicts, wars, and evil deeds can be deduced to single acts of crime. Much good was wasted and much life was lost. And now I'm seeing for the first time that this may all have been for little to no reason. If one person disobeying an order, if one squad turned away, if we all could see how crazy you're acting right now, or if I could just stop smoking so much, then we wouldn't be in so much trouble, right? I want you to think differently. All this war, all this fighting is seriously sick. It's men in power making disgusting choices that the rest of the people must pay for. Round them up. People that have been living here for centuries, whites only, to the people that built your country. Oil spills and sweatshops rampant as field mice, without one hedge of accountability. As you can see, the fight is on. However, it's not with each other. I need you to look at the world different. Look at the world like I do. Now that we have come to the utmost dreadful part of this essay, do you know what we need to talk about right now? Hi, my name is Larry Belfield, and I'm a realtor in your area. And out of all the scary and gruesome topics that we talked about, we finally get to go to the one we started with. However, with the newfound understanding, I know now that real estate begins with looking at the world differently. I know it seems like we all came from different regions and we are all in collision. However, I believe my research leads me to believe that before cities, all the people of the world roamed free. We were not tied to one location like we are now. We were as the animals going to and fro, from forest to forest, ocean to ocean. Most tribes would set up for a season, then move to a region that is safe for that part of the year. We learned this from indigenous tribes of the Americas, the Inca and the Olmec. We're known for this lifestyle. The Roman Empire was actually founded on this, bringing all those tribes that roamed. Most tribes near the expansion are calling Rome to their aid for growth. With safety comes people in need of it. New buildings, and people want to see a spectacle. Your entire world throughout time is about bringing in new people. Our world, entire history, our whole entire world throughout time is about bringing in new people. Our whole entire world throughout time is about bringing in new people. Our whole entire world throughout time is about bringing in new people. The way we live and play is centered around a random person showing up and needing something. This is because ever since the invent of the city, we have been making a great life for ourselves, catering to one another. However, the reason for us coming together in such a big way is the same reason we are in such dismay about our partners around the world. We are so stringent with our borders, not because we hate each other. It's because several times this whole city will abandon. Because in severe times, this whole city will abandon and go to the next one. Most people don't move like this anymore. So it takes wild trouble for this to happen. Most people don't leave a city when it's being taken over. So that only leaves one time when people will leave a city en masse. Okay? Natural disasters. Our world isn't plagued by wars or fighting. It's plagued by plagues. So often, a city will succumb to an illness, deterioration, so bad that all that are therein must depart. Now, you want to think that our world has natural disasters on a timely basis, that the disasters are what define us. We go through trouble every few hundred years or so, but we press on. However, my research tells me that the trouble is consistent. There's always some town or city having an outbreak of crime due to the growth of population. Because we aren't roamers anymore. The poor have always been here. The sick and afflicted are as natural to the earth as dirt. So what is it that keeps us together? When we guard, when we guard our borders so viciously, and our cities fall like flies, then we begin to kill each other so much that it outlines our history. Now I read the Bible, and I don't want to start shoving verses down your throat. However, I do believe it is important to state that it occurs in the Bible several times where the indigenous people are driven off the land. This happened for many reasons and in many ways. Ultimately, the word states that the Lord wanted the people to let the land rest. So basically, what this boils down to is the creation story, the very beginning. Now, as science has revealed, the most abundant resource in the universe is water, or hydrogen. Now, the earth was formed from asteroids and the land. Once the land forms, water will be pulled into the dirt as it collects. That's waters being separated from the waters. Now, enzymes, that creates the grasses and the seeds. Then comes organisms and the animals. Then finally, humans. Now, the first thing needed for us to exist is everything else. See, we are dead last on the totem pole. Think about it. We're slow, we sit in one spot a lot, and we just move our mouths. Can you see? We're just so giddly. I said that to say this. See, I believe that our planet needs the neighborhood. Okay? The neighborhood of planets around it to survive. I believe that the sun needs the galaxy of suns around it to survive. I believe that our universe is just one in an infinite ocean of universes. Because one tree has the power to seed an entire forest of trees every single year. Or how thousands of species can live on just a few yards of coral. And how life thrives on every terrain and environment known to man. What I have concluded is that there is something about the land, even our religions have this as one of their chief topics. In fact, I believe it's all about the land and how we treat it. Now, I know this is going to sound like an oceanographer or land rights activist, okay, but I urge you to see that all our history, all our religions, all of our forefathers, all of our time leads us up to this. We need to treat our land as if it were a person. We need to study and give the land what it needs to survive and thrive. We need to maintain the forest and make it grow safer and faster than it would naturally. Imagine the land without humans. See, nothing would ever get cut back. Animals would be dead and collapsed all over, as in India, where monkeys roam free in the city. See, we don't know a world where we live natural with the animals, unless you study the Inquisition. We came to a new light on how we lived before cities. We didn't kill as much. We ate more vegetables. We depended on the land like it was our life. Now we see the more we get out of the forest, the more savage we become. See, we are part of the land, not conquerors of it. We need the land. In order for a universe to exist, it may come from a place where there are lots of them created all together, like leaves on a tree. For our galaxy to exist, it needs the universe. In order for our solar system to exist, it needs the galaxy. In order for our planet to exist, it needs the solar system. And all the rocks and ice needs the planet to settle upon. And all the enzymes and plants and seeds needs the dirt, the rocks, and the water to thrive in. And all the animals needs the plants. And as humans, we need it all. Now, if we don't start respecting everything else like we respect ourselves, like we respect God, things will get bad. Not hand in the cookie jar bad. If you burn down that forest, you won't be able to breathe bad. See, the bottom line is that we can mess up this place. We have the ability to change the conditions of things so drastically that life itself will suffer. Look at the condition of our world. As you can see, the condition of our world is poor. Now, the condition of our bodies is poor, which makes our spirit poor. Then things get so bad to where we must go. Things can get that bad. This has not happened in the modern era because we have the power to stop most invading forces. However, most modern wars are centered around this very thing. The condition in my areas are bad. Let me just go to a new area. Now we know that the worst thing you can do is walk away. Nowadays, we can take on most natural problems. That cities faced. However, just 100 years ago, we couldn't face the same problems we face today. You really dismiss the fact that the car was invented less than 100 years ago. And before that, all people either walked or rode on a horse. Just common sickness can threaten a whole population. Things can get so bad. Things can get, for lack of a better word, biblical. Mother against daughter, father against son, brother against brother. Societies breaks down so bad that nothing survives. The cities fall, the people die, and everything that were there are swept away with the dust in time. And nothing survives of them, not even the foundations or the pathways that founded the city. And there is no help, nor any hope. And it is lost. Lost to the point of which there is no return. I thank you for joining me, Larry Belfield, on the Belfield Show. I would like for you to like, comment, subscribe, post, and share. Let everybody know what you heard here today. Spread the word, you know what I'm saying? Go tell it that, It's time for us to be real. The devil don't exist. It's just my black butt. I need to quit and go to church and do the right thing. You know what I'm saying? So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and get right with the Lord. Stop stealing. You know what I'm saying? Pray, and you know what I'm saying? Get on the right road. I thank the Lord for being here, for helping me, for keeping me and blessing me. I thank Him for you, and I want you to know that I love you, and I hope that you have a blessed day. Thank you so much. God bless you.